And if the Wards 2 and 3 steering committee members could please raise their hands. If you see a hand raised, if you have any questions about what's on the agenda or anything like that, feel free to ask someone with their hand raised. Oh man, I'm getting in the way now. All right. So we're going to do some announcements first, and then we'll get into public forum. So first off, we are looking for a representative from Ward 2. So these are our new wards. If you are north of North Street, you are in Ward 2, to be on the North Winooski Ave Transportation Demand Management Plan. It is a mouthful. If you have any questions about that, or if you are interested, please contact a steering committee member. Raise your hands again, steering committee. All right. So if you are interested in that, just go to someone whose hand's raised, or come find me when I'm taking a breath and nod on the mic. The other thing, very important for today's subject matter, the annual city meeting, or town meeting day, is March 5th. That is almost 1 month from today. You are getting mailed a ballot for the city election. So that is the mayor's race, city council, school board, ballot initiatives. You are not automatically getting mailed a presidential primary ballot. If you would like to vote by mail for the presidential primary, you must request it. And I recommend doing that as soon as possible, because if you're mailing it, that takes a long time. We know the mail system. Also, on the note of elections, if anyone is interested in volunteering on Election Day, the Board for the Registration of Voters is looking for volunteers to help out. And I'm sure there may be other volunteer opportunities. So please come talk to me if you are interested in helping out on Election Day. All right, moving along, we are in public forum. If anyone has anything to share for public forum, please, I'm going to take a pause again. All right, everyone raise your hand if you can hear me. This should be everyone. Okay, just taking a pause. Yeah. If you are not participating in the meeting and you're having a conversation, that's great. We would just really appreciate it if you could take it outside or in the hallway so all people who would like to participate can hear. And if you can't hear, there's lots of seats close to me and I yell pretty loud, so you might be able to hear me if you get a little closer as well. All right, so for public forum, please state your name, and we are eliminating it to 2 minutes per person. So would anyone like to share anything for public forum? You can take my mic. I'm getting over, I have a cold, so maybe use hand sanitizer after.
You want me to wait and see if anyone else has a public forum?
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
Just don't exclude me.
I won't exclude you. Just yell at me if I start. I see public forum over here. Go ahead. Slide it up. Yep.
Good. My name is Solveig Overby, and I'm an inspector of election in Ward 2. And I wanted to just make sure that, obviously, you've given the information about the election, but I wanted to explain the issue of the ranked choice voting, because we did it once, but we're doing it for mayor race this year. And how that works is that I actually have materials on that if anybody wants to see how it works. Number one, how you vote. Number two, how we as inspectors do the actual process at the end of the day. But you just need to know, you're going to see all the names. You're going to see first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice, fifth choice if you want to write somebody in. And you do not have to vote for more than one person. If you just only want one person, you don't have to vote for all of them and say, I want first, second, third. But you do want to just put them in the order that if your first choice did not win 50%, if nobody gets 50% of their first choices, they will then drop out the people that got the least, the last person. And their second choices will then become their first choice. So you do not lose your vote if you take the time to actually put in your first choice, your second choice. Maybe that's all you want. Maybe you don't want more than that. So just keep that in mind. I want you to know that. And I'm going to say that, I really want to say I'm really happy we're having the ranked choice and that we have 4 interesting candidates. I have to say that I am partial to 2 of them, Emma and Chris, and that I'm just probably have to decide which is going to be 1 and 2. But I think you all should really read everybody's statements and see what you can, what they're all having to say with their positions. So, next person, whoever is next.
Okay, so sorry everybody, but our meeting has started, so I'd like all the conversations in the room to drop down. So all the conversations in the room should drop down because we're having our meeting now. Okay? Still hearing way too many voices. The Valentine's table is exempted. Okay?
All right, thank you. And Will, you can go ahead. You want to turn it?
Can everybody hear me? Hi, my name is Will, and I wanted to say hello. I used to live right on Blodgett Street, so this was my neighborhood. I used to coach basketball at, Boys and Girls Club. Brian Pine knows me pretty well, I'm running for mayor because I believe that there's a lot to be desired in the city of Burlington, and I actually didn't come here to give a campaign-type speech today. I just wanted to let everybody in this room know that as a longtime union representative, over 10 years, I fought for workers' rights and so many other things on the streets of Burlington, and democracy. And anti-competitive monopolies is something that we're seeing a lot of in the city of Burlington, and it takes away from our children. And as a former baseball coach, I was coaching on Bernie Sanders' grandson's baseball team in 2018, and I think that a lot of parents should be aware that if there's a situation where you're becoming successful, let's say as a coach, and somebody's trying to take away from that, it's actually taken away from the kids in the process, and that's a big no-no. And I think that Burlington Athletic Department, along with our academics, could be up there with Brooklyn and the Bronx and Worcester, Mass. As far as talent goes, I think that talent exists in Burlington, Vermont, and I would hate to see anybody shake their head at that. But I also wanted to say, on behalf of myself and Chris, that we've been locked out of a couple debates now. Like I said, anti-competitive monopolies taken away from our citizenship. And, one of the problems is the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce debate that we were locked out of. Joan's campaign manager is Hannah King, and she sits on the board of the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce. Whether she stepped down or not, that's the reason that Chris and I got locked out of that debate. And I wanted you guys all to know, when you're voting this time around, just vote for change, okay? Whether you like a campaign person or not, or everything that's on their campaign or not, vote for change, okay? Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Will. All right. Any other public forum? All right. Chris, do you want to go ahead?
First of all, I just want to say thanks to everybody. I've had some microphone issues, if you hadn't noticed. Thanks to everyone who came out and signed the petition up to get me on the ballot. I'm very grateful for that effort. I got into this race not to get involved with personal attacks, but because I wanted to compete in the marketplace of ideas. And I felt that there were a number of serious issues that just simply weren't getting the kind of attention that I think we deserve here. And when we look at the current state of affairs in the city, our proverbial credit card, our bonding capacity is maxed out. We were looking at a pretty significant deficit, all while demand for services were increasing and businesses are leaving. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I'm concerned that our infrastructure is aging. Memorial Auditorium's been shuttered now for several years. We have a number of aged school buildings in addition to what happened to the high school. And we also have some issues with the Marketplace Garage, for example. That's reached the end of its 50-year life. It's got a $20 million price tag. In today's dollars, it'll probably be closer to 30 by the time we get around to fixing it. And because the proverbial credit card is maxed out, we don't really have the resources for that. So when I came here 25 years ago, the vacancy rate was about 5%, 0.5%, excuse me. And at the time, I had a one-bedroom apartment over on Buell Street that cost me $500. Those days are long gone. But what hasn't changed is the vacancy rate. It's still about 0.5% these days. But the number of renters has increased pretty significantly from about 50% 25 years ago to about, I think, somewhere between 60 and 70%, depending on the source. So I've always felt that single-family home ownership is something that we need to prioritize. Creating generational wealth is a tried and true strategy for bringing people out of poverty, and owning a home is one way to create generational wealth. So that's important to me, and as the only renter in the race, I understand that higher taxes equal higher rents. We don't have the benefit of income sensitivity like the homeowners. We do have the renter rebate, but that's not till the end of the year when we file taxes. So at any rate, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and if you have anything, hit me up while we're chilling out here at the NPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Real quick before I ask for one more public forum, where did Jeannie go? We are passing around. If you enjoyed our lovely dinner tonight, we do have a donation jar. Jess mentioned it when she spoke briefly about 30 minutes ago. But please consider leaving a donation if you are able, because the food was amazing, as we all know. All right.
Hello. My name is Charlie Messing. I live at Pine and College, way down, way over there. And we're part of your district. And there is those of us who think that the downtown is so separate, why it should be a separate ward. But that doesn't even bring an echo. I mean, nobody cares about that. I am on the Council on Aging. I tried in vain to get it changed to the Council of Elders. But the Council on Aging, and we try to make things better for the old people because there's going to be more and more old people, they say. This is a city, we advise the council, and they say, what's good to do first? What will affect the old people the most that will be the first thing we should do? I said, fix the sidewalks. Thank you. The response to this was not positive. It was, number one, it was like, that's not 30 words. How do we fit it into a document like this? They want an initiative. Then you implement the initiative as part of your action plan. And I don't speak that language, so I just said, fix the sidewalks. Anything you do for the old people, they are not going to even see it because they can't look up. As they're going along, they're staring at the ground, and they're going to continue to stare at the ground. At any rate, I'm trying to do something to help the generations reunite, because social media has decreed that we are different target audiences, and that you, the youth, should feel that the old people have nothing to offer. And the old people should feel that the youth are a great annoyance. And I assume there's a lot of money in that because it has dominated what they call social media. And I really think we should do something about getting people together. It's a community. Even the youngest people who want the future the best and the most, they're surrounded by all the stuff that has been done. Burlington was built a long time ago, and they're always going to be surrounded by the past. And they shouldn't hate the past. And they shouldn't hate old people. And I am the only one in my building of 65 people who even wants to come out and talk to people at this hour. They're in bed. So I've been doing stuff at the, wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up in a neat little, well, actually a sloppy little package. I'm very bad at packing things and wrapping them. But I've been doing things at the comedy club and trying to talk to people a third my age and make them laugh. So I think anything we can do to unite the generations. And I told the Flynn, I said, a community of generations, that's my idea for a class. Wrapping it up, bang, bang.
Thank you. I love that idea. Thank you. Let me just see. All right, so we are going to move on to our, if you can make it super quick, we have like 1 minute.
Hi. Really quick. We need to vote. Like, we need to vote. We need to vote. Our district, wards 2 and 3, our turnout is pathetic, which is why the powers that be don't care about us. You need to vote. Got it?
That is a perfect thing to unpublic forum on. Thank you, Milo. All right, so we are going to move on to our next agenda item, where we will be voting on a new steering committee member for Ward 3. So raise your hand if you live south of North Street and or live in Ward 3. Raise your hand. All right, we have lots of you here. Just need to make sure. All right, well, I will let Jessie introduce herself, and then we will do the vote. Yeah, that should be on.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Jessica Robbins. Most people call me Jessie. I'm a Ward 3 resident on Grant Street. Prior to that, I was on Ward 1. And then prior to that, I was a UK resident, if you couldn't tell my voice. Yeah. So I came to Burlington just over a year ago. I married an American. We met farming. And then I moved to Ward 3 sort of halfway through last year. My day job, I work for the state, I work for the Department of Health, and my role is Community Coalition Coordinator, and I'm always admired by the work that my grantees do with their municipal policy work, and a lot of that is giving them technical assistance, and so I really wanted to get involved on a community level in a personal realm, and so that's why I'm asking you tonight to vote me onto your steering committee. I think it's so important to connect to your community political level because things can feel so much more tangible and measurable. We can sit and discuss community issues together, and it's so important because I think on the federal level, the international level, things can feel so out of reach. And yeah, that's me. I hope you'll vote me tonight. Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce Charlie Messing from Ward 3 as well, from downtown. He's expressed some interest in serving, so let you have your spiel here.
What do you want me to say? I would like to be on the council.
Yeah,
I would like to be on the council. I have plenty to say, and so I can add things. Sometimes a thing too many, but I can add stuff, and I have the answers to all kinds of things that they can't find the answers to. But it's not my job. It's their job. Hi, Brian. Anything else? And I'm with Chris here. Chris has brought me, and I'm with him.
Motion to elect Jesse and Charlie to Ward 3 Steering Committee.
Can a Ward 3 member make that motion?
We need a second.
Can we have a second from someone in Ward 3?
All right.
Thank you. All right, so we will do each of these separately. So let us start with Jesse. If you are a Ward 3 member only, so Ward 2, you are sitting out this vote, and you are in favor of voting Jesse into the steering committee for Ward 3, please raise your hand. And if you are a Ward 3 member and you are opposed, please raise your hand. All right, welcome Jesse to the Ward 3 steering committee. And now we will do the same for Charlie. If you're a Ward 3 member and you would like to vote Charlie onto the steering committee for Ward 3, please raise your hands. And if you are a Ward 3 citizen and you are opposed to Charlie being on the steering committee, please raise your hands. All right, and welcome to our two new steering committee members for Ward 3.
Thank you.
All right, the next agenda item is a presentation from CEDO on their consolidated plan. Fosca, are you doing the talking?
Hi everyone, I'm Fosca. I'm the NPA Public Engagement Specialist with CEDO. I'm here on behalf of some folks who are working on the Consolidated Plan for Burlington. So on your tables, there's a sheet with a QR code, but basically every 5 years, the City of Burlington creates a plan for housing and community development priorities. The plan will direct how the city uses federal funds it receives from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The plan includes information about Burlington's demographics, housing, economy, strengths, and needs. So basically, it's a very short survey. They're asking if you can just fill it out and say what you think the City of Burlington's greatest challenges are and where we need to prioritize these funds. I also have some paper copies I will leave on some of the tables, and there's some dots, and you can just assign them to the survey questions. It's a very brief survey, though. So online, on the link here, or QR code, and then in paper copy as well. If you do fill out a paper copy of the survey, please just leave it here at the front of the room by the end of the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Fosca. Any questions before she hides? And we'll include, if you don't want to do it tonight, we'll also include the link in our meeting minutes so you can access it once you get home or at a later date. All right. So now we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but because we have such a packed agenda, we're going to keep rolling as long as our representatives are here. So for this part of the meeting, we will be going over, we're going to start with ballot initiatives, then we'll go over our uncontested races, and finally, we're going to end with a Ward 3 City Council forum. I do want to make a note here for all people that are presenting. We are sticking very strictly to time limits, so you'll see Erica over here. If you're standing facing the crowd like I am, she's off to the left. She has some lovely minute cards, and that also applies if you're asking questions. We just want to make sure we have a chance for everyone to speak if they're interested and hear from anyone that is interested. We also have note cards on tables if you do not feel comfortable asking your question in front of the crowd. So just find Roxanne once you write your question, and I will ask it on your behalf, or Roxanne will ask it on your behalf. So with that said, let us get started. So the first item we have is for the fiscal year 25 Burlington School District budget. Is Russ in the room? Russ, okay, great. I cede the floor to you. Do you have a mic?
On my way up here, I overheard someone say, "This will be fun." You have a twisted sense of fun, but I will try to make it as painless as possible. How about that? So my name is Russ Ellick. I'm the communications specialist for Burlington School District. Superintendent Flanagan wanted to be here tonight. He is at a PTO meeting at Champlain Elementary, answering some questions parents had. We recently got, as you know, the state is doing statewide PCB testing of all schools, and there were some samples at Champlain that came back a little bit high. Don't worry, we're not going to have to tear down another school building. Just they were too high in the gymnasium for preschool students. So we've been able to create a plan to work through that, but he's still there answering questions from families and staff who are in that building. So he sends his regards, and we want to thank you for your time today. I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to go really fast. I want you to know that this year we developed the budget knowing a few key things. The first is that we knew that wages were going to be a big thing for us. All of our bargaining units were about in the 5% in wage increase range, but also the health insurance, which is negotiated on a state level, was going to be going up by 16.4%. So we had major cost issues with wages and benefits. And then we also knew that this was the first year that we're going to begin feeling the impact for the bond that Burlington overwhelmingly voted to approve for a new high school and technical center. So part of this year's budget includes $9.5 million in debt service payments for that school. So we knew going in that this was going to be a big bump for our budget, that was really going to impact us. So what we did is we also know that we have a 5-year strategic plan, and that we didn't just want to throw that in the trash. And so that we wanted to try to make some investments, but at the same time, not overwhelm taxpayers to any extent possible. So what we ended up doing is that we put about $100,000 of investments into our budget, but then we offset that, it's about $1 million. It's about $1 million of investments, but we offset that with $1 million of reductions. So we could continue to make some of those small investments in our strategic plan, but not at the cost of throwing everything at you on town meeting day. You'll see a little chart on the back of the sheet on the tables, And this is a pie chart that shows the proportion of increased spending. And I have 1 minute left. Holy crap. So that big red thing is the bond. That's the huge reason that the budget is going to go up. The other thing that you need to know is that when we developed it, we thought we were going to be eligible for a tax on our spending portion, for a cap on that tax of 5%. And that's thanks to the weighted pupil law that your school board helped pass in the last year. That 5% cap is going to go away, is what we've learned, or they're going to try really hard. The good news is we tried to develop a budget that we were cognizant of the year-over-year impact of it. So there you'll see a lot of school districts put millions and millions and millions of dollars into their budgets thinking that they were going to get a 5% break. We didn't do that. We knew we were going to have to pay for this in 5 years. If that cap does go away, the tax impact for our spending is only going to go from 5% to about 6.5%. The major portion of our budget this year is going to be due to the CLA. And the CLA is causing it's causing a 9% tax impact itself. So together, our budget this year is about 15.6%. Again, 9% of that is caused from the CLA. And I think I have 3 minutes for questions.
You do. And just so everybody knows, you mentioned that you printed these out, so thank you. We'll also link to that in our meeting minutes as well, so you can feel free to take it with you, or if you didn't, someone snatched it before you, it will be available online. All right.
If there are questions maybe about like how much this might cost someone who pays on the value of their home?
Russ, if you could just explain CLA, I don't think everybody knows what that means.
Great. So the CLA adjustment is the common level of appraisal adjustment. So essentially the way that our system works is that every year you pay taxes based on the amount of your home. If you're a renter, you're not paying this. But if you pay taxes based on the amount that your home is worth. However, every year the state comes in and looks at all of the property values in the cities and says, actually, we're going to need to charge you a different amount. Even though your house hasn't officially been appraised for more money, we know that it's worth more. We've seen how much the houses have gone up and up in the last 2 years, right? So every year the state tries to put an adjustment there that helps you pay what they would consider to be your fair share of property taxes. Unfortunately, they do that adjustment at the same time we do our school budget. So when we present our school budget, it appears as if we are driving all of that tax rate, but again, 9% of the tax increase is due nothing. There's nothing we could have done in terms of our spending to reduce that. And in fact, because of the CLA, our numbers show that to get us under a 10% tax impact, we would have had to cut 12% of our staff.
Russ, can you tell us next year how much of the bond are we going to be paying off? My understanding is this is the tough hit.
This is the tough hit in terms of the tax impact. So we'll continue to see $9.5 million built into the budget in future years, but it's not going to be the driver of your taxes going up next year. We've borrowed about $130 million of the bond at this point, and if we are trying to do everything we can to save money on this project so we don't have to use all of the bond. If we do it, it's like another 2% tax impact next year and then the year after that. But again, we're going to try not to borrow all that money. Hello, Liz Curry. Long time no see.
I'm coming from behind you with the mic, Liz. Here you go. It's on.
In the legislature, there's a bill to postpone school budget votes. Can you just talk about what that would mean, please?
Sure. So in Burlington, because we didn't throw everything except the kitchen sink into the budget, we are not, if that passes, we're not planning to go back to the drawing board at this time. We feel like putting forth a modest budget of really 6.5% of a tax impact, except for the CLA, and the vast majority of that 6.5% is due to the bond that Burlington supported. So at this point, we're not considering going back and revisiting the entire budget process. We think we have a budget that responds to the pressures of the CLA, continues to make strategic investments in our school district, and has offsetting things.
But what's the implication statewide if the other districts do postpone the vote? Will that have any ramifications for Burlington in terms of the state education formula?
Well, one thing I can tell you is that thus far, none of this is written, none of this has actually gone and been voted on and been approved by the governor. So this is all in theory, but the governor has to say yes also. Maybe not? Okay. Anyway, right now, they're saying they're going to use the general fund, the state's general fund, to run a special election for those. So each of these different communities will not have to, if they do choose to do a special election, and the districts that will need to do that are the ones that Russ said they threw a bunch of millions into their budget and then found out, no, we are not allowing you to get that 5% cap. So they have to go back to the drawing board. We do not have to go back to the drawing board because people at BSD were super pragmatic with their choices. So they're going to limit what they can put in that 5%? So the 5% cap was really put in place of Act 127. The 5% tax was intended to be an off-ramp for the districts that inadvertently got ample funding. While many districts like Winooski and Burlington were we like to use the term underfunded, but that's not a very nice, politically nice term. We went without, while these other districts had quite a cushion. So of course, if somebody gives you a bunch of money, you're going to spend it. So they have multiple positions. They have maybe more than one librarian. They have, different programs that eventually they have to scale back. But hopefully they'll do that more through attrition than cuts, right? So over the course of 5 years, they were given the opportunity to access this cap, 5% cap. But some districts were like, wait up, let's get a new gym. Why not? Then we'll hit that threshold and we'll be able to access that 5% cap. I don't exactly know what happened. That was me being a tad bit snarky, probably.
Yeah, it was designed to be an off-ramp for districts who were going to feel the pain of receiving less money for weighted pupil. And in Burlington, we're actually receiving more money to educate students who are in poverty or who go to small schools or who speak English as a second language. And that's because of the work that the school board did. So they tried to prevent an off-ramp, and they said, everybody, we will tax the education spending portion of your tax bill. We're going to cap that at 5%. And a lot of school districts saw that as an opportunity to just put everything in their budget. Oh, we do need a new gym, or we do need this, or we do need that. Remember, schools also lost ESSER funding this year. So this was our last year of ESSER funding. So there's a lot of school districts out there who tried to pad their budget, take advantage of that 5% tax cap, and then say, I'm going to figure this out over the next 5 years. But what that caused is someone has to pay for that, and there's not money for anyone to pay for that. The thing that was designed for communities, everyone took. It was just designed for a few people, but everyone took it, and now there's no money, so they have to figure this out.
All right. Thank you, Russ, and thank you, everyone, for the questions. We will be including Russ's email in the meeting minutes if you have any follow-up questions. I know we're operating on a really tight schedule today, so please reach out to Russ or us or your school commissioners if you have any questions. Thank you so much. All right, so next up, we have the Burlington Electric Department's credit limit increase. Is there a representative from BED here? There you are. So you have 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And there's a time. I'm not sure if you can see it. Erica and Bruce got it over there. She'll hold up time cards then. Oh, okay.
So I don't have to worry about that.
So why don't you hold this just for a second?
No one else is anyone else. Just you, right? Just, okay, but sure, it's just one person's fine. I just want to see if because I'm trying to find people asking questions. Where's mommy?
No!
You can stay with us.
Like
that better? Where's mommy? Okay.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, everybody. My name is Emily Stebbins-Wheelock. I'm here from the Burlington Electric Department. I'm our CFO. Why am I here? I'm here to explain a ballot item you will see on the town meeting day ballot on March 5th. The ballot item will ask voters to approve an increase in Burlington Electric's line of credit limit from $5 million to $10 million. So what does that mean? A line of credit is basically a preset borrowing limit where we have an arrangement with the bank that says if we run short of money to cover payroll or expenses and we need short-term cash immediately, we are ready to go with the bank to draw down up to $5 million in case we need it. The line of credit was established back in 2007 at this $5 million limit. Back then, that represented about 50 days of cash for us. As inflation has happened to all of us, including BED, the line of credit now represents only about 32 days of cash. So it provides less value for us in terms of being reserve that's there to tap if we need it. We have not drawn down the line of credit since 2013. We have no immediate plans to do so. It's really an emergency thing. It also helps our Moody's credit rating because Moody's can say, oh, okay, you have this much liquidity, cash in the bank, but then we know that you have access to this much additional liquidity if you were to need it. So we're asking the voters to approve an increase in the line of credit from 5 to 10 million, essentially to sort of bring the level of the line of credit up to par with our operating expenses. Thank you. Why does this need voter approval? If we were ever to draw on the line of credit, it would be considered debt. And all debt issuances or borrowings have to be voter approved, either by bringing you a specific bond item to approve, or in this case, if you authorize it in the city charter, then it's there, it's kind of set and forget it, unless we ask for another change and you approve the change. I think that's the major stuff I wanted to cover. Sir, you had your hand up? Did you have a question?
So the electric company is having struggles every year on trying to keep everything going?
No. No, we're not asking for this approval because we're struggling. We're asking because raising the limit is a relatively low-cost way to help our credit rating, and it is just prudent to have the extra money, sort of to have that on par, more on par with the limit as it was originally set back in 2007. We don't have any kind of financial exigency or financial emergency at the electric department. Yes, I'm happy for that too.
You mentioned that this is mostly an emergency fund. I'm just kind of curious with this line of credit during BED's annual operating year. Does BED draw from this line of credit during their typical calendar year at all, or?
No.
Oh, terrific.
We haven't drawn on it since 2013.
Excellent.
And we hope not to have to
in
the future, yes. In the back.
Can I just ask, does this impact the tax? Are we going to be paying for this in any way?
Yeah, great question. So what is the rate impact, right, on your electric bill?
Yes.
So all things equal, this should have no impact, and in theory, it should reduce rate pressure. Like, it'll reduce pressure on us to raise rates. Why would I say that? I would say that because to maintain a strong credit rating, we want to have decent liquidity, and so there's a couple different ways, right, that you could show you have cash. One is actual cash in the bank. The line of credit is another kind of corollary to that. So if we had to sort of come up with the same level of liquidity without the line of credit, the only source we would have for that is rates, right? But the line of credit, we pay a little bit for it to just keep it there unused, but for that, to provide that amount of cash without going to ratepayers is an overall benefit.
Yes.
What was the circumstance in 2013 that you drew it?
Ooh, I was not at the Burlington Electric Department in 2013. I am not sure. I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Any other questions for Emily? Are there any questions online? I don't think I've acknowledged. We do. Okay, thanks, Fosca. If you are online and listening, you can ask questions. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right, and for our last ballot initiative, we will have two, Jean and Milo will be talking about the public safety tax.
If you want, you can sit here or you can stand.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Total. Erica has the car.
There she is. So you, so you can sit, stand, or you can stand right here.
Great. We'll give a
Great.
little space.
You want to start out? Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Public safety has been an issue now for several years. And one of the things that we have done over the last couple of years is fund a number of initiatives, recruitment, increased officers, the community service officers and the community service support liaisons. These are non-uniformed civil enforcement and social workers attached to the community. We have done a host of other things that have cost, including the new union contract that cost serious money. And there is a commitment that I believe this community, and a consensus has made to try to do an all-inclusive way of public safety, and that includes really spending the money on the police department and the fire department. There is also a new rapid response team out of the fire department, which has been very, very successful in reducing the number of overdoses and deaths as a result of that. Well, lots of this has been paid for by federal ARPA money. And as we know, that money is drying out. There is austerity on the national level, and we have to decide whether we can, how we're going to continue to pay for these things that we have committed to do. And the proposal has been made by the administration and has been supported by the council to put on the ballot an increase in the special tax that we have, the property tax, for police and fire services of up to 3 cents. And this would not mandate that the taxes would go up 3 cents, but it would set that cap and allow us to do other things to try to keep it down. And do you want to, Phil?
Yes, so I voted to have it put on the ballot. I don't have warm and fuzzy feelings about it just because we just all heard about the school budget, right? There are things that are happening right now to address the very significant deficit we're going to have for FY25. So this may be something we have to use. The city is looking at other things. We're examining, for example, fees that we charge for various things, increasing the hotel tax. So there's other things being looked at. This is a way to buy us more time to see what else we can do to address that significant deficit that's coming up. The reason I voted to put it on the ballot is because if we do need it, we need to have it on the ballot, because if we find out later that we need it and it's not on this upcoming ballot, we'd have to run a special election. And we do not want to spend the money. With all the shortages of money, to spend extra money for a special election is just not prudent.
So what are we doing that would save our Church Street from falling apart? The businesses are leaving. It's dangerous to go out there at certain times. So what are we doing to save our Church Street from becoming a desert?
We have had businesses that have left. There are businesses that are moving in. I think that we continue to support the added positions such as the community service officers who are adding to patrols. The patrols were increased during the holiday season. I think having the community response team from the fire department has been really excellent because it's made them more nimble in terms of responding to some of the overdoses that we've been seeing. I think we need to be supporting harm reduction. We've done a great deal with regards to the police department, but we need to address the issues regarding the demand for drugs. We can't just law and order our way out. I mean, you guys have heard me say that over and over again. We must address the supply side. If we can't reduce that, we will never have people stop coming to our community. People are coming into our community to sell because there's a market here, and that is the reality of the situation. So the department they have the new number. It's going very slow. We only have one person entering the February Academy. We had a lateral transfer who, after just a few months, left. So right now we're stalling out again. But the money is there. The police department is well funded. We just can't control when people apply. Will they be eligible? If they go to the academy, will they make it through the academy, and then will they stay? There's all these other vectors that we can't apply, but the money, the contract, the funding is all there. We need now to be concentrating on trying to get our overdose prevention center in the city. We need to, down at the legislature, they're working on some of the laws, because we have stuff happening that Vermont laws can't even handle right now. So there's some other things, but we are out of time with that. 30 seconds.
So David, the thing about it is that if we don't have the money to continue all this stuff that we're building, then we got a big problem, right? So that is why we need the authorization that we're asking to do, with the hope that we can find alternative means of raising the funds, cuts, and we can do a better job of standing stuff up. So, yeah, that's that.
I'm sorry, can you explain the 3 cents? Like, is that on an assessed value? I mean, can you explain where that money's coming from?
3 cents on the, is it $100 valuation? On the $100 valuation. It's going to raise about, it raises about $600,000 per penny. So we're looking at a $9 million gap overall. This is intended to pay, although I guess I'm wrong, because I thought we were going to be $3 million. So I guess it pays about $1 million a pop, a penny. So in order for us to do what I just said to David, we've got to come up with the other 2/3 of this. But it will. I don't have off the top of my head exactly what it will translate to in your property tax. There was something, and I think we did provide at least a link for that information. So the NPA has that information about what it will cost taxpayers who own houses of various income, of various valuations.
Yeah, it's going to be really important. If you're not following the city council meetings, if you're not following the Board of Finance meetings, you've at least go to Civic Clerk on the city's website. You can click on the calendar, look through for the meetings you want to look at, and at least look at the presentations, because there's a lot of talk right now about FY25. We're like talking about it early, even though it won't be voted on until the next council. Thank you.
Thank you both. And as Councilor Bergman mentioned, we have linked, if you go on the QR code, you should be able to access that link. Otherwise, you can access it tomorrow. But thank you, councilors, for speaking to that. We will be now moving, this is the closing of the ballot items. We are now moving into our uncontested races, and since Councilor Bergman's already up here, you can take the floor again.
Okay, don't start the clock, right? Don't start it yet. So I timed this out as very close to 2 minutes. So I generally like to look at people, but I have to talk faster than my wife says I talk, so I'm going to read it, and we'll try to look up at the same time. So apologies asked for early. Hi, I'm Gene Bergman, and I'm running for re-election in Ward 2 and would love your support. Why? The progress that I've made has been far too limited under the current administration and council majority. Affordable housing is the biggest issue I hear door to door. We passed some reforms that may increase the availability of apartments and are looking at others, but none are going to make a big difference for a while. This is why people are calling on me to support rent stabilization. This is why people are asking for changes to the property tax system to make taxes on residents affordable. Things like income sensitizing the municipal tax rate and creating a real renter rebate program, updating the non-property tax revenue sources that Bernie pioneered, adopting an anti-speculation tax and other measures to put a brake on the gobbling up of properties by investors. I would just pause to say, if you look at page 67 in this week's Vanguard, or 7 days, I'm dating myself, that you will see an ad for 2 apartments on Elmwood Avenue that are outrageous and that are, it's unbelievable. You look at that ad and you tell me that we don't have a housing crisis. And this is also why we have to make UVM shrink the housing deficit caused by its over-enrollment and underhousing of its students. And that includes graduate students. The proposed MOU doesn't cut it. I have been arguing for a lot of climate change stuff, and I just want to say that all of the things, from the F-35s to McNeil to the North Winooski Avenue, they all have to be watchdogged. We all have to do more. It's significant that the Democratic majority just blocked us from asking you, the voters, whether we should close a big loophole in the carbon fee ordinance, and they're posed to block another resolution of mine seeking voter approval to expand the reach of the ordinance. I just need to be reelected to do this work. I wish I had time, but I don't, to go into public safety more. But did you know that the Democratic majority blocked a modest police oversight charter change codifying and slightly expanding the commission's powers from even coming to the voters? So there's a lot more I could do. Go to my website, genebergmanforcitycouncil.org, or call me, or email me at gbergman@burlingtonvt.gov. Thanks. I only went over probably a minute.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. We can give like 30 seconds if anyone has a quick question. I see no hands. I'm just trying to get you to dance, that's all. All right, thank you so much. So the other 2 uncontested elections are for the Ward School Commissioners. So we are joined by our Ward 2 Ward 2, are you currently, you're still, I know you are too. I wasn't sure if you were Ward 3. Yeah. But before I pass the floor to Polly, I just want to note that the commissioner that is running for Ward 3, Saja, she is unable to make it today, but I have provided their email address in the meeting minutes, so if you'd like to reach out, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, Polly, the floor is yours if you want to come up here, or I can bring a mic back to you. Okay.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Polly Vanderputten. For the past 4 years, almost exactly, I've been the school commissioner representing Ward 3. Because of the district change that happened, that was voted in last March, I am now running for school commissioner for Ward 2. Ward 2 kind of moved west and swallowed up where I live. Why am I running for a third term as school commissioner? Why did I run in the first place? I grew up in this area, not in Burlington, but next door. I went to public schools. I was a free and reduced lunch kid my entire life. I'm a big believer in the importance of providing high quality public education to all students, and I am also a public school teacher. I've been teaching in public high schools since 2008. So I see this fight for pennies when it comes to something that I see as essential to our community and our democracy. And I can't solve all the problems by serving as school commissioner, but I can bring my insight from being a public school teacher, from being a mother. I have a daughter who is in middle school now in Burlington Public Schools, from being somebody who benefited from public school education. And I feel really passionately that I want to represent the voices of the community, especially those for whom public education is the way to get a better life. So, I'm not going to talk about the budget again. There was a presentation, but it's really critical that we vote to approve this budget in order to continue funding education the way it needs to be for our students this year, and I'm happy to respond to any emails in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We can give another quick 30 seconds if anyone has a quick question. All right, otherwise your email is always provided in our meeting minutes anyway as our currently elected official, so feel free to reach out with any questions. Thank you. You can leave that on the front table. All right, so now we are going to move into the last portion of our agenda, which is a Ward 3 City Council forum. So we have allotted 60 minutes to this because there are 3 candidates running for the Ward 3 City Council seat. And I invite those candidates to come up while I kind of set the ground rules for for the questions. As Roxanne has been passing out, there are note cards on the table. If you don't feel comfortable asking the question on the mic, we can ask it on your behalf. We ask that all questions are brief and to the point, that they are directed at all candidates, and that they are issue-based. So that is what we ask of you as the question askers. And we've also given the candidates time allotments as well, just for visibility. I watched the debate last night, so they shared it there, so I'll share it here. The candidates will have 2 minutes to give an introductory statement. For each question, they will have a 2-minute answer. They each have a 2-minute answer with an option for a 1-minute rebuttal if they are named. And finally, they'll have a 2-minute closing. So that allots us time for about 7 to 8 questions with the hour that we have left. So I just want to highlight that. So think about your questions and feel free. Roxanne is right over here. If you have a note card that you'd like to pass off, I'll also be sitting and maybe do a loop if you want to pass that off to me as well. Otherwise, I will pass the floor to our candidates who, do you have enough mics? That's important that you guys have mics.
Hello? Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here at an NPA. I really appreciate the community engagement in this city. The city punches way above its weight for a city of like 40,000 people. It's incredible living here and seeing just the vibrancy. 7 days, community newspaper, a co-op, a bunch of climate organizations that advocate for infrastructure improvements like Vermonters for People-Oriented Places, peace groups, groups that do good work on anti-colonial struggle. I am engaged in this community. I'm also rooted in this community. I have 2 sisters living here in Burlington. I live with my grandma on North Ave. I actually bumped into one of my sisters and my niece at the waterfront today while I was out on a jog. So I'm rooted in this community. I'm involved in the community. I've been involved in writing letters for 7 days that appear at the front in response to articles. I've been involved in giving public comment at city council meetings. I was engaged in a campaign to collect signatures for an advisory ballot item that didn't make it onto the ballot for this March. By way of background, I am an economist. I teach economics and statistics courses. I also work for the government, calculating the unemployment rate. I have done research. I've published research and have taught courses on healthcare, environmental, housing, and labor policy. And I have a lot of ideas, basically the same ideas that Emma Mulvaney-Stanek, our progressive mayoral candidate, has for making this city more affordable. We have renters whose rents are going up by $700, $800, $900 who can't plan their lives. We need rent stabilization. The incumbent councilor who is endorsing me, Joe McGee, is not running partially because he's not sure he can continue to live in the ward. We need tax reform. We need democratic process reform, and I'll get into all that moving forward, but I see I'm out of time. It's nice to be here.
Thank you, Joe. All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Malik Mines, and I am running as a Democrat here in Ward 3. I'm also running as a write-in candidate, so if you like what I have to say at the end of this, please write my name in on March 5th, and when you receive your ballot in the mail. A little history about myself is I come from Philadelphia. I lived there for 18 years. I came to Burlington looking to attend college at Champlain, and when I first got here, those 4 years, I thought that I would leave. It was then when I started a job as a preschool teacher that I truly knew that Burlington was the place where I was going to stay. All of the families that I've worked for and all the community partners that I've made and worked with truly made me feel like this was my home. There's a lot of families who I still speak to this day, whose kids I've had since they were 2 years old. They are probably maybe in 5th grade now, and I still get phone calls and messages about Mr. Malik and how they want to reconnect. So yeah, I love working for nonprofits. I put my life behind civic engagement with communities and just working with people. The reason I chose to run was because I truly care for the children that I worked for. It almost brought me to tears when a kid had asked me to walk them home for the bus stop for fear of safety at 5 o'clock at night, and walking past needles, stolen goods, and drug paraphernalia, and then getting to the bus stops and not knowing whether or not they would be harassed. That was not a part of my job that I signed up for when I worked for the Burlington School District. I also care a lot about about housing and the housing crisis. My rent just went up, I found out the other day, and our taxes are also going up. And if we don't do anything to fix that currently, we are going to tax people out of their homes who are Burlingtonians and who deserve to live here and deserve to not have their money just go to waste. And so, again, out of time, but thank you.
Are you guys okay with 2 mics? I can give you mine. You're good? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Aaron Felker. I am the Republican candidate for City Council here in Ward 3. I've been a Ward 3 resident for about 12 years now. My husband and I came up here from Pennsylvania, and there was something really magical about Battery Park to us, the view of Lake Champlain and the charm of the neighborhood. Maybe this happened, maybe this is a familiar story, maybe you can remember. We never left. We came up here for vacation, we stayed and had our stuff shipped to us. That's how much we love Burlington. And I love the democratic process, and elections are really all about coming together and having diverse conversations together about the future of our city and our vision for how we want our community to be. Currently, our city seems to be in trouble. We are facing multiple problems. We have public safety issues, an affordability crisis, horrible lack of housing, and an unrelenting drug crisis. Our leadership can do better, it must do better. I'm here today to say that we have a vision to try and restore these things and fix our housing market. My campaign is about communicating, building relationships, connecting communities, and addressing the concerns that our neighbors have. I ask you to join me in this fight. go to www.felkerforward3.com. Follow along, sign up for emails. Feel free to donate if you'd like. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit more in just a few minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now we will open the floor to questions. So Roxanne is walking around with the mic, and I see one. So as a reminder, the candidates have 2 minutes each to respond to each question.
So this is addressed to Christopher.
If you could keep your questions directed towards all candidates,
all candidates
specifically, thank you.
Is there a way that we can increase the safety of the transit station for being less violent?
Of course. We can make sure that, first of all, we can make sure that the cameras are connected and that we're recording there. The cameras do operate as a deterrent to crime in many reasons, because people don't want to be identified and then arrested after the fact. That's a good start. Once we can increase our officer levels, we can increase foot patrols. We can increase the foot patrols that go up to the Church Street Marketplace and bump them in more of a cloverleaf fashion. So that way we are including these areas that members of our community feel are more at risk.
Yeah, no, I agree with increased police foot presence as well too. But we also need to get to the root cause of a lot of the issues that encapsulates a lot of that too. A lot of that has to do with the drug crisis that's going on. So we need to also have services that are down there close by the bus station where a lot of people need to use and utilize in order to get places. We also need to get to the root cause of housing too, because a lot of people are out there tend to camp by the bus station as well too, because they have a lack of housing. So if we don't see this as just one singular issue, we need to see it as a bigger issue too that Burlington needs to address. And once we do that, I think the bus station will start feeling more safe.
So I agree that we need to increase foot patrols downtown. We are making every effort we can to restaff the police department. We could go further, a little bit further, by increasing hiring incentives for the non-traditional unsworn officers, so the community service officers and community support liaisons, to try to increase staffing and maybe increase the caps for those positions. In terms of non-law enforcement strategies, I appreciate that Malik mentioned root causes. I'm a progressive, and progressives focus on root causes. Progressives have vision for taking bold action in terms of a public health response. So street outreach programs, expanding those, for instance, an overdose prevention center, and other sorts of modern responses to the public health crisis we see. And then in terms of folks hanging around there who are, houseless, we could take more creative, bolder action on houselessness. Portland, Maine, earlier this week actually took a couple $100,000 from its housing trust fund to put towards establishing permanent housing for houseless individuals who, hang around in public spaces, which is, not appreciated by the public and contributes to a lack of perceived safety.
Thank you. I see another question. Roxanne's getting her workout in today.
Thanks. Can you all talk about how you will work to promote a respectful and welcoming community and civil rights for our transgendered kids, neighbors, friends, family? Thank you.
We can go in reverse order this time.
Okay, I appreciate the question. I know that in this city, there's been a lot of work done to lead the way on inclusivity for decades. In fact, I think there's a plaque on Prospect, I think North Prospect. It says something to the effect of Peter Lukoski, the Ward 3 city councilor from the 1980s, led the way on inclusivity measures. Peter Lukoski is endorsing me and working on my campaign. And the Progressive Party really has taken leadership on this issue for decades. So I would take cues from ML Mulvaney-Stanek, other candidates who do good work on this issue, including Lee Morgan. I appreciate that the NPAs, have received guidance on this issue. I appreciate that The City Council, I believe last March, passed a resolution condemning transphobia. So I'm aware that there's been significant work done and that the city has shown leadership, and I would continue to make sure that this city shows leadership on this issue moving forward.
Hi. So as a former Burlington School District employee, I just want to give a shout out to all the work that the Burlington School District has had done in order to make sure that children can be themselves and that people recognize people for who they are. I was a really strong supporter of the UBU group at Burlington School District, specifically in the middle school, and it was an affinity space for people of all kinds to come together and talk about issues at such a young age, and you would not believe how passionate and how strong of a leaders that these children are. And I was lucky to be there and to help support them. I also do believe that we also need to have City Council put more people in leadership who are of different backgrounds and different identities. The more we can do that, the more people can actually see themselves in these roles and these powers, and then the city can truly reflect who we are as a community.
Yes, so regarding civil liberties, absolutely. I am a civil liberties advocate. I'm a staunch First Amendment absolutist, and I believe that civil liberties are the rights that we all are enjoined with. I defend them I defend the rights of individuals to say what they wish, even if I absolutely disagree with them, because that is what standing up for civil liberties means. I'm a 45-year-old married gay man, been gay my entire adult life. And while I don't relate with the transgender experience, I can only get up every morning and try to be a good, honest person and try to lead by example. And that's the example I will continue to do every single day. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the mic to Roxanne to ask one of our submitted questions.
So this question was emailed to us from a Ward 3 resident. The question is, how will you inform and, more importantly, listen to your constituents so you're not just promoting your personal or party's agenda prior to voting on projects or issues that directly affect our quality of life?
And Christopher Aaron, if you want to start.
Sure. I think many of you do know me. I never go away, no matter how much some people would like. I'm always around. I'm always listening. I think that even the people in this room that might not have the most favorable opinion of me know that I will always sit down and listen to their opinions and truly listen to understand. I am about building relationships, even if they're difficult. So, thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask for the question one more time?
How will you inform and, more importantly, listen to your constituents so you're not just promoting your personal or party's agenda prior to voting on issues and projects that directly affect your constituents' quality of life?
Thank you. As I embarked on this campaign and got the chance to door knock and knock on doors, I got to talk to a lot of the constituents and understand truly what they cared about, and a lot of that aligned with who I am as a person and the things that I write on my campaign and the things that I would fight for. I have no single ideology besides the fact that Burlington is a welcoming and safe place, and if that's the ideology that I stand on, then I'm going to keep carrying it forward. I'm not backed by any sort of like super group or whatever like people like to think of when it comes to politics. This is my first run at it. So as a working class citizen who makes well under the mark of what he probably should be at his job, yeah, I do what I do for the community. And again, you can look around and you can find my signs next to Joan's signs. You can find my signs next to Emma's signs. People truly like what I have to say and what I stand for.
So I'm glad Malik brought up, who he's backed by. I think this is a question that does relate to campaign finance. So, I would like to see campaign finance reform where we have publicly funded elections. In Portland, Maine, which I already referenced earlier, if you collect $55 donations, so $250 in donations, you unlock $4,000 in public funds. To run your campaign, it makes it much easier to run for office. If we paid counselors more, the position would also be more accessible, and so that would reduce the likelihood that somebody is, getting pressureful emails and calls from people who funded their campaign, that sort of thing. In terms of, respecting and listening to constituents, I've very much enjoyed my conversations on the doors. I've followed up with long email chains with individuals who do and do not hold the same beliefs as I do. I would do anything I could to support the NPAs. I appreciate that the counselors come and give updates at NPAs. I also appreciate receiving updates from counselors on Front Porch Forum. I've seen my counselor, Joe McGee, do that a number of times. I am pretty critical of the mayoral administration in this city, but I really do appreciate that the Weinberger administration has set aside time weekly to meet with constituents who want to talk with him at the coffee and bagel. I think it's Wednesday mornings. I do admire that, and I would look to mirror that in my public service.
Thank you. Any questions from the room? We'll get a mic to you. Roxanne's coming from behind.
The city's climate policy, the net zero energy roadmap, focuses on reducing fossil fuel use, and it doesn't address dealing with non-fossil fuel sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Would you support extending the policy to deal with non-fossil fuel sources of greenhouse gas emissions, including dealing with the McNeil power plant?
And Malik, we'll start with you. I haven't been fairly distributing, so I apologize.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I actually just had this conversation recently too, where we are in the midst of a climate crisis, and I think that a lot of leaders actually need to take a look at who is disproportionately affected by the climate crisis, and that includes climate refugees and people who move to Vermont and states where they need to get away from the disasters that are happening. With that, a lot of the policy changes that we're making also needs to take into account those climate refugees as well as the people who will be disproportionately affected. So with the McNeil plan, I do believe that shutting it down completely will affect a lot of people disproportionately, and we don't see the bigger picture there. The city itself does need to recognize that we have to reach that net zero goal at some point, and that we need to find alternatives, and we can do both at the same time while also making sure that an impact does not disproportionately affect people.
Joe, if you want to go next, I think that falls.
Sure.
I'm going to try and follow an order now.
Okay, I appreciate the question. I think this is a topic where there's pretty good daylight between the parties. Progressives take this issue very seriously. I would like to see the net zero goals rewritten with greenhouse gas emissions in mind. I'd also like to see the management of it moved out of the Burlington Electric Department to an independent management for setting our climate goals. I would like to see McNeil phased out as well, but I'm very aware that that is not something that's feasible right now, not feasible in an environment where we can't move to network geothermal very quickly because that's very expensive infrastructure, where maybe the GMP home battery program extension would help to some extent but isn't a solution in the short run. We are currently selling our renewable energy credits to neighboring states and then taking the hydropower from Quebec in a way that disincentivizes green development in neighboring states. We're not taking this issue seriously. I noticed that both mayoral candidates, one of whom I believe is in this room, put climate on their platform, but make no mistake, progressives would act much more boldly on climate, restricting fossil fuel infrastructure, looking to partner with Vermont Gas on a network geothermal infrastructure pilot, which is something that Eversource is doing in Framingham, Massachusetts. We need to act boldly. I'm endorsed by Run on Climate. I'm endorsed by Sunrise Champlain Valley. And this is something that I would really take time to focus on if I was on council. Thank you.
I am not a fan of the net zero 2030 policy by any stretch. I do support, and I really do like energy efficient natural gas. This is Vermont. We have cold winters. And as I said last night, I think that Vermonters should be able to affordably heat their homes and feed the people who live in their homes at the same time. So I would pump the brakes, personally, on trying to force residential conversions, and I would like to maintain right now the use of natural gas as a home heating supply. Regarding McNeil, I just have to say that I personally have learned in these rooms from a very intelligent woman that the fuel used in McNeil is wood slack that comes from when trees are cut down, and that slack is usually burned on site. However, we are not going to stop the burning of that slack until we stop using wood to build homes. And since we are in a housing crisis and need to build a whole lot of homes, there's going to be slack, and we should pick it up and use it as fuel to make energy for our people in town so we can have affordable energy in town. Otherwise, it's just gonna get burned on site and pollute the environment anyway. At least we can try and capture that and turn it into power here, because we need homes and it's gonna happen. I understand it might not be the most ideal. Trust me, remember, I already said I'd like natural gas, but we've got this wood chip plant. So it is what it is, and I'm just gonna live another day.
Thank you. We're going to do another pre-asked question.
So this was from someone who either was or still is here on a note card. If elected, what is your biggest, most important idea you want to work on? It's actually a two-part question. The part two is, what's your favorite flower?
The flower can be outside of the 2 minutes. We'll break the rules for that one. I think Christopher, and you are first for this one.
Right on, okay. I think a lot of our problems, I think the root of a lot of our problems stems from our housing issues. When people are, public safety issues can root back to housing, the housing crisis, addiction issues can root back to housing issues as well. So I think that from where my vantage point is, if I can only pick one issue out of public safety, addiction, and housing, I would have to focus on housing as the most important. Plus, our housing market is upside down. A healthy market is supposed to be a 60-40 split of homeowners to renters, and we're completely upside down. We're 65% renters in this town. People move from one unit to another. The turnover rate is so frequent, sometimes we don't even get to meet some of our neighbors. This is really troublesome, and there leads to the housing insecurity. So we really need to make some efforts here to reform. These might not be super popular, but we'll go through them anyway. A residential medium density should be mandated for at least 80% of the city. Auxiliary dwelling units, ADUs, currently in residential medium, they're only allotted for 900 square feet. In residential low, they're allotted for 1,100 square feet. That's a 200 square foot difference. That's a living room, or as politicians might call it, a housing opportunity. We need to fix that. That is a mistake. We should repeal the condo conversion penalty for residential property buildings that are greater than 60 years of age. This is a throw out to you NIMBYs in town, okay? Like, if you want to care about preserving your neighborhood, the character of your neighborhood, let's turn those old Victorians into real homes for people that will reinvest in them and preserve them for the next 100 years. Now, here we go. I think we really need to take a hard look at repealing and repealing inclusionary zoning in town. Okay, the world didn't end. Cool, we can move from there. As long as you know we can start the conversation, I'm happy with it. And from there we can build, and we can build homes for everybody in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Malik?
What's that? Yeah, you know what? We have a hibiscus in our bedroom that's beautiful and blooms 4 times a year, but I have to say that the white lily at Easter time is always my favorite.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for reminding on that, the important question. Malik, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously housing, but an initiative that's even closer to me and closer to a lot of Burlington businesses too. I do think that we need to figure out a way to bring back downtown a farmers market to pump up a lot of those business losses that we were facing after COVID. This by no means means that we need to get rid of the South End farmers market, but also finding one that supplements the downtown farmers market as well. Businesses took a big hit during that, and it was a lot of small coffee shops, a lot of small boutiques that saw a lot of foot traffic because of that farmers market as well. As well as any other issues that you guys will find on my website as well too. A lot of them do surround children and families and finding things for them to do in the wintertime. The farmers market is really important to a vibrant downtown community. I love seeing people walk around and shop and walk around with flowers as we speak of that, and baked goods and coffees, and so again, anything that brings hope and revitalization down to downtown. My favorite flower is a daisy.
Very nice, thank you. And Joe?
Yeah, I think the flower question is harder than the question about what we're most excited about to do on council. Yeah, for the flower question, I'll say sunflower. Now, for the question that I think is more pressing in terms of city policy, I'm inclined to go with democratic process. I really believe in democratic process reform, paying councilors more, public campaign finance, policy reforms to the way we conduct meetings, public comment, the way we handle ballot initiatives. I think there are a lot of democratic process issues in this city that impede our ability to actually enact policy on the environment, on housing, on all sorts of things that people care about. But the specific policy that I'll talk about is tax policy. So we talk about housing. Malik was just talking about housing. It is a crisis. We are working on this neighborhood code process, the second phase of which will be before council this summer or fall. Christopher Aaron touched on the neighborhood code process as well. And that is important. Zoning is important. But the tax system also significantly affects our housing stock in a way that people sometimes don't see, in a way that isn't as obvious. So we disincentivize development by taxing land and structures the same. So if you do an extension, if you add an accessory dwelling unit, your tax bill goes up. We could tax the land, which goes up in value when the community is doing better. We could tax the land more than the structure. The state of Pennsylvania allows localities to do that. The city of Detroit recently passed that. I would also like to see a vacancy tax. I would like to see taxes tied to occupancy. The state funds the education program, tying the state education tax to occupancy and income. We don't do that at the municipal level, which leads to us not recovering income tax savings that snowbirds who live in Florida for 181 days, right, and save $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on income tax, we just leave that money on the table and don't tax it back, and then end up with more empty residential dwellings in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I see a question in the room as I start to ask.
Hi, I have a probably simple, easy question. I'm fairly young, but not in college, and I want to play basketball outside. I grew up in central Vermont, and my town of 2,000 people had lights on their basketball courts. Why do we not have things you can do outdoors with lights?
Thank you. Malik, you're first, I think, right?
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's one of the initiatives that I was talking about when we need to provide people things to do, not just in the summertime, but also the wintertime. And this speaks a lot to what's happening with Memorial Auditorium and things that we should do with Memorial Auditorium. And I think that Memorial Auditorium should be used as a rec space for people, and it should go back to its roots of just having to serve the community. Not only that, though, the waterfront is a huge missed opportunity for economic growth and development within the city. I know that the Frame is planning on building an outside skating rink, hopefully at some point. I love ice skating and playing hockey in the wintertime, but not a lot of people see that. But I do think, again, having easy, affordable access to activities to do, renovating and keeping Memorial Auditorium within Burlington public reach and control is something that we should do to allow for that. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think Joe's next. I can't confuse myself too much by going opposite directions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. There are a lot of issues on the expenditure side, a lot of things that people would like to see that we're not currently spending money on. I think that's a worthy cause. And I'm probably on council going to be more focused on the revenue side. We can collect much more in terms of tax revenue. It would be a charter change to do so. But also the way we collect revenue, leaves people with, huge rent increases, leaves homeowners with tax bills that go up significantly. We had a reappraisal process that pushed more of the tax burden onto homeowners. We don't have a vacancy tax. We have a lot of issues with the way we collect revenues in this city. And that leads to hard conversations. And we're going to have even harder conversations over the next couple of years because we're facing a budget shortfall. And so there are going to be folks pushing for austerity, for cutting programs. We're not even going to be talking about new things. We're going to be talking about which things should we save. And if we don't start to talk about revenues, how we collect revenues, find new ways to collect revenue that are more equitable, if we don't start having those conversations now, then your question is never going to be heard at the city council level.
Okay, so I really like this question actually because there's a lot that we could talk about with this. So at nighttime, having lights on in the parks so that way they can be utilized. Great in concept. And what we can do is we start off by bringing this up at like a Parks Committee meeting, and then we have a little conversation about it, and we come back the next time, we bring it up again. Ultimately, you're going to have somebody who's a neighbor who's complaining that the light is beaming right directly into their bedroom. That's fine, but again, Parks Committee meeting, we'll talk about putting one of those screens on it so that way it really focuses the light down, right? Because the city has a monopoly on the electric companies, so it's not like the bill's gonna be super expensive, okay? So we can provide these things, but there's a process to it, and it's kind of fun to engage in it that way. When it comes to more activities, I love what Malik was talking about, and the point here is we do need to be able to, as a city, raise more revenue in our general funds, and we are known as like a touristy town during the summer season, and that's great, but how do we become a touristy town during the winter season, i.e. have more things to do at night, during the winter months, bring more tourists into town, have them in the hotel rooms so that way they're eating in our restaurants, they're tipping our friends, they're going out at night. We can do these things together as a community. Sadly, Memorial Auditorium, in order to do anything in there anymore, we don't have the money to do it. The city's general obligation bonding capacity is maxed out until 2030, and that building is gonna fall on its own in like the next 2 or 3 years. So we've got to raise it down to the ground, and the best option truly is a long-term lease to a developer, so that way the city still owns the land. We don't know what we want to do with that asset in 100 years, but we'll still own it. Large skyscrapers are done this way, like the Empire State Building is built on leased land. By the way, that was built in 410 days and is still standing, and 10 years we haven't built City Place yet. Okay.
Thank you. I do want to give an opportunity if anyone online has any questions. We haven't gotten any yet, but just in case, there's a few people online. And for those, well, for everybody, I guess, we probably have time for about 2, maybe 3 more questions. I'm going to guess probably 2. Anything, Vasca? Okay. Are there any questions in the room then?
So my question is, are we going to give tax incentives for businesses to go on Church Street so they can at least survive, so they can hire security so they won't get robbed?
Thank you. I think, Joe, you're first, or did you go first last? You guys probably are keeping as well of a track as I am. I think you're first, Joe.
Thanks. I appreciate the question. I am concerned about our downtown, and I think the state of our downtown though is overblown. There have been shops that have moved in that are doing well, always full market. Just opened a new location right off Church Street, which a lot of my friends are really excited about. I'm really excited about. I think it's a huge problem that businesses on Church Street feel the need to hire private security. It's very expensive. In addition to the write-off from theft, to have to hire private security is a huge disincentive, a huge disadvantage for downtown businesses. And we're already doing everything we can to restaff our police department and to put more foot patrols on Church Street. I would like to see patrols on Church Street every day. I would like to see CSOs and CSLs there. Right now, on a good day, we have 4 officers for the city center area. So I think controlling what we can control, just getting more patrols out on Church Street as soon as we can is the best way to help downtown businesses. I wouldn't support, going beyond that, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Can you remind me what the question was? The tax incentives. Yeah, I mean, well, this actually reminds me of, there was a reappraisal process in 2021, which businesses actually got off easy because they were able to claim lower revenues during COVID. So it was like your revenues as of 2021 impacted the assessed value, which led to lower tax bills. So the golf course, for instance, got a 40% tax cut and will continue to get a 40% tax cut until the city takes the initiative to do another reappraisal. So, I think in terms of taxes, businesses actually have it relatively good right now, to the detriment of homeowners and the tax bill that homeowners are paying.
Thank you. Christopher Aaron.
So I'm all about tax cuts and making things more affordable, but I'm not so certain, my friend, that I'm 100% on board with offering a tax rebate or an incentive to businesses on Church Street, but I am absolutely open to a collaborative partnership between the Church Street Marketplace Committee and the Burlington Business Association to see how we can find ways to make it so that way there's more like an escort program like they had in the past. The perception, feeling safe, leads people to want to come back. And we can work on that. There are other things that we can talk about, specifically safety in city garages. If we want to talk about bringing more people into town, which is what's going to keep our businesses on Church Street afloat and operating and thriving, contributing to our general funds, there are ways to do this. I know there are people in Chittenden County that don't like coming in anymore because their cars were broken into in the parking garage. Well, maybe we can change the way we operate our parking garages, okay? If you ever lived in another city that when you pull up to the parking garage, it's valet service. Not super fancy, it's valet service. They come in, they put a tag on your windshield, they put a tag on your key, and they hand you one, and you get out. You don't drive your car through the parking garage. This reduces liability coverage. They can pack more cars in there, and you don't have people overdosing or breaking into anything. It all around better option. You're creating jobs, and there'll be city jobs, so they'd be union jobs. So these would actually be great, because then more people will want to come in from Williston to shop at the Church Street Marketplace and more frequently. The feeling safe, the ability to easily get into Burlington and get out unscathed with happy memories. That's what's going to keep Burlington's Church Street Marketplace afloat.
I worked at and managed a store on Church Street for about 10 years while working at a preschool, while also leaving that preschool at night and then working as a bouncer at Nectar's, and then also working as a pizza chef at Mr. Mike's. I did a lot of work in Burlington. Perceived safety is something that is going on in our community right now, and the best thing that we can do to make sure that people want to come and visit our businesses and shop at our businesses is bring in businesses that people want to shop at, whether or not they're local and whether or not they're providing what's with the times, and also making sure that people feel safe by seeing involved foot traffic of police officers, CSOs, and CSLs. The more safety people feel in downtown Burlington, the more likely that we will have booming businesses once again. And again, back to the point of on weekends, we need something in the summertime and the wintertime that incentivizes people that way to come and shop, rather than giving tax breaks to businesses.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, maybe two. Definitely one.
Do you have any thoughts on economic inequality? Because none of my friends, none of the families that I work with at the public schools can afford to shop on Church Street. I work at a public school. I'm not shopping on Church Street because I can't afford it. And that's just a huge thing with the housing crisis. Everything, just so many people have master's degrees and they can't really afford to live here. So what are some of your focuses on economic inequality in Burlington, so that we're not just focusing on bringing people who can afford to enjoy Burlington here from other places?
Thank you. Christopher Aaron, you're first.
So the best way to affect affordability in town is by building more. The best way to affect affordability in town for everybody is truly to build more housing. We are in the depths of a supply and demand crisis. Prices are high because vacancy is tremendously low. I know it's depressing. Like, I'm a grown adult and we're still renting. Because I look around at the Zillow listings in Burlington and it is heartbreaking to see what $450,000 can buy you in this town. It's like a 120-year-old home with sloped ceilings and asbestos in it. Why would I want to jump at the opportunity to dive into a money pit like that, a remediation trap that seems like my own worst nightmare? We have to build more housing. Then we can start to stabilize the supply and demand effect, at which point people will start to migrate back and forth. We'll start to reach an equilibrium, which will bring prices down. And again, if we're able to turn older buildings into condo opportunities, home ownership opportunities, then we're sharing the burden and we're reinvesting in our community and protecting the beauty that is Burlington. So that way we don't just live in glass and steel shoeboxes everywhere around, right? They have no character. Let's reinvest in the character of Burlington. The only way, we know, it takes 10 years to build anything in the state because of all of our ridiculously onerous regulations. The only way we can open up immediate housing opportunities for the entry level, $250,000 to $375,000, is through this condo conversion. The only way we can open up that ownership opportunity in 6 months, you can be a homeowner in this city. We've got to do something, right? We can't just keep paying rent. The rents are too damn high.
Thank you. Malik?
I'm going to be honest with you. My answer may not be the answer that you're looking for. As a person who grew up in extreme poverty and came to Burlington as a way to escape that through a college education and struggled with that for almost 5 years, and it weighed a lot on my mental health as well. The only way for me personally to have gotten out of it was by working my way up through college and finding like solutions within my community. And it was so difficult to do that I would never want anyone to go through that process of like putting so much on their mental stress just to make a buck. We need to have more economic opportunities to help people out of poverty so that way they can afford things, because I can't manipulate prices of items as much as I want, like $500 Yeezy shoes. I don't have the budget for that. And I wish that back home we had those opportunities in my community to work our way out of economic situations that we face. But here in Burlington, we have those resources, and we can definitely put more money towards those resources to helping people out of poverty as quick as possible, whether it's through home ownership or whether it's through business loans. We're first-time business owners as well, too. So this may not be the answer again, but I come from a different perspective of what it means to earn $1 and how people can get $1. Again, a lot of doors closed in my faces and a lot of doors closed in my sisters' and my brother's faces. So I'm sorry if that's not the answer.
Thank you. Thank you. And Joe?
So progressives take this issue very seriously. They have been for decades. Back in the 80s, the Progressive Party and the Sanders administration fought to protect the tenants at Northgate who had a difficult landlord, managed to actually help the tenants come to own the complex. Progressives established CEDO, established the NPAs, established Champlain Housing Trust to do work to help Burlington remain affordable for working class folks. And voting progressive this town meeting day will continue that sort of work. So for instance, rent stabilization. Right now, rents go up by hundreds and hundreds of dollars. There's somebody on a fixed income who's in his 80s who lives on Converse Court who, one of the wealthy families bought the house and is increasing his rent to the point where he's like in serious trouble. I've heard stories. I hear stories every day when I'm knocking doors. Rent stabilization would go a long way to help. And then the largest source of revenue for the general fund is property taxes. And we currently have a flat property tax system. So wealthy folks, they go, like I said, and save the state income tax, living in Florida half the year. And then We just tax them the same as you or I would be taxed if we own the home, living here, doing work in the community. So implementing a progressive structure to the property tax system, rent stabilization, those would go a long way to making sure that working class folks can continue to stay in the city, that the city continues to look and feel like, you know, the city that we love.
Thank you. All right, we have time for one more question. Just keeping an eye on time. Any questions in the room? All right, I saw a hand. Oh. You
Name one historical figure for whom you derive admiration or inspiration.
Ooh, that's a good one to end on. Malik, I think you're first.
Seeing as it is Black History Month, Malcolm X has always been a person who I try to admire and go after. If anyone knows me personally, know that I am a door kicker-inner. If I can't get the answer that I want, I will go to the person's door and I will knock and I will try to get that answer. This is something that I do at work. People tend to send emails. I tend to go to your door and knock and say, hey, can I talk? I hear a lot about activism, and again, by birth, I am an activist, and I fight for rights that I did not have and that people in my community do not have, and that's just something that I will always stand for. I do believe in being a pacifist, but at the same time, I do believe that there's a time to take action and to get out on the streets and to march and then do things. So shout out to Martin Luther King, but also shout out to Malcolm X, man.
Thank you. Joe?
That's a great question. I'm an economic historian, and so so many names come to mind. I mean, we're here because folks put their bodies on the line to get the 40-day work week. We were working like 70-hour weeks around the time of the Civil War. Now we have time to engage in community, which is wonderful. The figure I'll mention is Tommy Douglas, who did work in Canada and Saskatchewan. You're a hockey guy, so you're probably familiar. So in Saskatchewan, they held the line. I mean, they have a different governmental system, and they held the line on healthcare, universal healthcare, until the point when the Liberal Party in national politics needed a little bit of support in the early '60s. And ended up making a deal to look into a universal system, and it became Canada's universal healthcare program, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. I've done research on Medicare for all. I've done research on universal basic income. These sorts of things, and the folks who did the work to bring these policies to other places, are my heroes.
Thank you. And last but not least.
Historical figure. This is rough. I mean, I don't look. Historical figures will often disappoint. Once you really start reading their biographies, they tend to shatter the illusion of what you had imagined. There are plenty of different presidents and historical figures that have many inspirational quotes out there. I always harken back to that fantastic quote from Ronald Wilson Reagan. My most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." So always be cautious of what your government can do for you, and try to engage as a community, because your community is really the ties that keep us together. It's your community that's going to be there for you when your house floods. It's your neighbors that are going to be there for you when something goes wrong. The government's not going to save everything, and the cops aren't always here to protect you. We have to protect each other. So let's stick together.
All right. So now we will go into the closing statements. So you each have 2 minutes, and you're looking at me because I'm probably supposed to guide you of who's going first. Joe, did you go first for opening? So we'll do Christopher, Aaron, if you want to go first for closing, and then Malik, and then Joe. Thank you.
thank you for this wonderful conversation together tonight. Again, I am Christopher Aaron Felker, the Republican nominee for City Council here in Ward 3. City Council is a collection of 12 individuals representing our city. We're all coming together, applying different life experiences to the problems in front of that horseshoe table. It's important that we each represent different vantage points, different communities, because not each one of us has a piece, just a piece of the answer. And it's when we come together and put these pieces together, we can see the full picture and the real solution. My opponents are great guys, but progressives and Democrats are already strongly represented on council. And while I know this isn't exactly a Republican enclave, there is more that unites us than that divides us. And we can come together and talk about these things and solve our problems together, because that's what community is. And if we work together, we can rise together. And I'd love the opportunity to help solve our community's problems with your guidance. Thank you. I ask for your vote on town meeting day, and for those of you who have the financial ability, please reach out, www.felker4ward3.com, and donate, because that's how this machine works. That's how we get our message in mailboxes, and that's how we spread the word. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Closing statements. I came here tonight not knowing necessarily what was going to go on, and I walked into a beautiful meal being had by neighbors from all around, and it made this small city to me feel big and connected. And I'm happy that you guys invited me in here in order to experience that, even though I live right across the street, but my busy schedule does not allow for me all the time to come across. My experience with the Burlington School District, my experience serving on the board of a preschool and working at a preschool for 6+ years, working in their finance committee, managing a budget that I never thought that I had the opportunity to manage, given where I came from. I do think makes me a pretty good candidate for you guys and to serve for you all. I do think that campaigning and getting the chance to walk around and knock on each other's doors made me realize that I don't have all the answers, but everyone has a chance to come to one person that they trust in this community to speak for them. And I'm a person who listens, and I take time to take in what everyone has to say and think about what they're saying, and then I can speak for what they have to say during city council meetings. I do think that we're reaching a turning point within our community that comes to public safety and housing, and that someone who has experienced both of those personally, that I do have that experience to then go back out there and hopefully make change and bring resolutions to the table that will affect us positively. So once again, thank you for inviting me in here. I am a write-in candidate, so please, if you do like what I'm saying, write me in. Go to my website, malikminds.com, donate, and yeah, I'll see you guys on town meeting day on the 5th. Thank you.
Thanks, Malik and Christopher Aaron. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you all for being here and engaging in the community. That's what makes Burlington so special, the level of community engagement that we have. I'm asking for your vote because I admire the work of the Progressive Party in this city. We have a real third party that does tremendous work, on affordable housing, on tax policy, on renter support, on environmental policy. I think we have a unique opportunity in this city where there is some infrastructure, where there is a movement that already exists, that is, doing values-based work and wants to get money out of politics and change the way politics is done. Politics is very frustrating, right? The two candidates who just gave their closing statements both asked you for money. We should not have a system where candidates making their closing arguments at a debate are asking people for money. We should have a system where the money is set aside by the taxpayer, where people can focus on policy, they can focus on their platform. I'm an economics professor. I have significant background doing research and teaching. I have precise policy ideas. I have a clear vision for what I want to do. And this is a 2-year term on council. And I think I could come in on day one with, the readiness just to put forth, meaningful agenda items that would be felt in people's lives in this city. Thank you.
Thank you to the candidates for their great insights. Thank you to you, the question askers. So this was our last agenda item. I just want to echo a lot of the sentiment of what they said. Town meeting day is Tuesday, March 5th. It is coming up soon. Please, please vote. Also, please make sure you know where you're going to vote, because for a lot of you, it has probably changed. The city did send postcards with that information. And last but not least, we are pulling the raffle winner. Charlie, pick a name.
So actually, I want to mention a couple things. First of all, for the first time since before the pandemic, we served over 200 people tonight at the community dinner. So we're back to pre-pandemic levels at the community dinner. The other thing is, if people could help, like, pick up all the chairs and tables before you leave, I'm about to bring out the carts. So maybe all the chairs first, and then so we're going to see who's here for we have 2 door prizes. The first one is Liz Curry, but I think she just left about 5 minutes ago. The second one is Sydney.
Sydney? Is there a Sydney in the room? I can't read the last name. It starts with a D. No Sydney? Nate? Is there a Nate in the room? You really got to stay till the end. Amy, I know Amy's in the room. Where did Amy go? Amy, you won one. We have one winner. All right, there are